Welcome to the Exploring Your Options portion of the OC Connect training. I'm Corey Root, coordinator of the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. In this part of the training, we'll talk about shelter diversion, and we'll start with a big picture with diversion and context. So, research studies show that communities can divert around 20% of people presenting for emergency services from entering shelter by asking a series of questions, and sometimes by providing some targeted funds. Here in Orange County, currently we don't have any funding, but we are working on this. The diversion that we'll do in OC Connect at this point is to facilitate a conversation that helps people think through options. So the purpose of diversion is to find a safe place where household members can stay. This helps us to prioritize services, and it helps to improve system efficiency. So if we can keep people out of the homeless system, this is in fact better for people. People tend to get traumatized in our system, and the experience of homelessness is pretty rough for all family members. So if we can divert people, we want to do that. It will also prioritize the beds for folks that don't have any other safe option for another place to go. The OC Connect Exploring Your Options tool uses a strengths-based approach to give people an environment where they can think creatively and problem solve. So we know that when folks are in the midst of a crisis, they're less able to think creatively, and people can feel stuck. And this is true for anyone, not just people experiencing a housing crisis. So OC Connect starts with strengths and then continues the conversation from there. There are two groups of folks that will go through the Exploring Your Options part of the tool. The first group is people who will be losing their housing in less than 3 days, or people who are experiencing homelessness for less than 2 weeks. After the Exploring Your Options section, folks will either be routed to a non-shelter safe place to stay, and that would be a successful shelter diversion, or they'll get a shelter referral if there's no other safe place to stay. In fact, the majority of folks will probably do this. Data shows about 80% of folks, so we'll see what it looks like in Orange County. Or if a safety issue comes up, the domestic violence referral process will start, and that goes directly to Compass Center. There's a few tips to remember about using OC Connect. When you see a red bar, it means you need to enter information. You won't be able to move to the next screen before you enter something in the required field. If you try to hit continue and it doesn't work, it means you need to hit save first. Many of the answers you'll need will be in a drop-down list of options. And if you're typing in the database as you talk with clients, we recommend that you sit on the same side of the table so both you and the client can see the screen that you're working on. Okay, we're going to look now at the questions themselves, and we'll start with the strengths-based questions. So the introduction script starts with the purpose of the tool, and it asks some questions to explore where folks stayed the night before and how they've been able to stay out of shelter right up until this point. So we ask, over the past 6 months, what have you been able to do to avoid seeking emergency shelter? What were things like for you when things were going better? And how have you been a support for other people? So these questions are meant to be conversation openers. They're not meant to be sort of a rigid set of questions that you ask word for word to each person. It's really meant more to set the conversation in a strengths-based environment. You don't have to ask all 3 of these questions. The goal here really is that we're grounding people to start this conversation in what has worked well in the past. And you can also refer back to these questions when it's relevant throughout this whole conversation. So the next part of the tool goes into where folks exactly stayed last night. So the question number 1 is just that: where did you sleep last night? And the options are emergency shelter, transitional housing, in their own home that they either own or rent, in an institution like a hospital or prison or detox or substance use facility, at a family or friend's place, in a foster care setting, or in a place not meant for human habitation, a car, a shed, like that. If someone mentions that they stayed in a hotel or a motel, it's very important for HUD designations to understand if it is a hotel or motel that they paid for themselves, or if someone else, a service provider, paid for that hotel motel. For the second question, it asks, of the place that they stayed last night, was it safe? And we don't just stop the question there. We then give a list of some examples of a safe environment. So if it is a place where you are fearful of someone who has access to the location, does anyone who has access to the location, are they threatening or intimidating you? And if you're worried you might be injured if you go back there, if anyone at the location is trying to control you or make you do things you don't want to do, or if anyone at the location is pressuring you to engage in sexual activities against your will. So we don't want you to ask each one of these questions like a yes or no to the client, like that they have to answer each one yes or no. It's more that we read these options, and we do want to read all of them to folks. And folks can just sort of give a yes, not to each one individually, but like, yeah, one of those would apply to me. That's when we would start the Compass Center referral process. So the reason that we do this and that we read through the examples is that it's designed to catch folks who may not self-identify as being a victim of domestic violence or intimate partner violence or like that. We're not trying to define people's experience for them or diagnose someone. We're only trying here to flag a case, and then we'll route it to the staff at Compass Center who do have specialty training and can handle these situations and get folks into safety quite quickly. We do not want to send anyone back to a situation that is potentially harmful. And we really want to read through all of those examples. And if someone at the beginning says, oh, no, this is, none of that applies to me, but maybe you've only gotten through one or two of the options, we recommend to just say to folks, that I'm required to kind of read all of these. I need to read the whole list. So then question 2B goes into a further screening for safety issues. We ask, again, do any of these apply? And we're not looking for a yes or no to each individual one, just is there a yes here somewhere, and you don't even need to tell me where. So are people at the location trying to keep you from leaving? Are people at the location trying to keep you from completing your normal daily activities like eating or sleeping or taking medication or bathing? Are people at the location trying to pressure you into sexual activities against your will? Are you afraid that you will be harmed by someone at the location? So if any of these are yes, it means that there's a personal safety issue happening. And this is a hard stop in our process, and we call Compass Center at that point. If no, it could still mean that there are some physical safety issues, and we'll proceed with understanding if there's another safe place to stay. But in cases where people answer no, that there's no to question 2, no to question 2B, we will ask folks if there's any other, what folks would need, given that sounds like it is a safe location, what would folks need to go back to that place where they slept last night? So that starts staying where you stayed last night section. And we ask, what would you need to continue to stay there? Would it help if we talked with a landlord or a housing provider? Would it help if we talked with friends or roommates or others? Would it help to have a certain amount of money for rent or utilities or other financial things that you need to pay for? So in this section, we go through and try to understand that. If it would help, if folks think it would help to contact someone, to have a conversation, then we ask you to record the name of that person and then what happened in that conversation. If folks can stay where they stayed last night, we check that box, and that's a successful diversion, which is great. But if not, then you check the box, keep thinking through other places to stay, and we again go through Are there any other safe places to stay? So as you're talking with folks, if you try to really zero in on what happened exactly that they can't stay there, what is different today than happened yesterday when you could stay there, and then try to understand, is this like a permanent problem from now on, or is this a temporary thing that potentially could be fixed? What was the impetus that the person had to leave? Was there like a flashpoint? And beyond that, like, what's the real issue? You can like dig a little bit there. We don't want to like make anyone uncomfortable. This is not meant to be like a inquisition of any kind, or prying too much into interpersonal issues. But we do want to try to really have the laser-like focus on where did you stay, what happened there, and is there a way that we can get you back there? So if it will help to have a conversation, definitely, start that process and call the person. There also, are some physical things that can be bought, like grocery gift cards or things like that. Some common or some real life examples, maybe not common at all, but some real examples that have helped people. There was a person who was apparently using too much dish soap at the place that they were staying, and the landlord there, or their friend who they were staying with, got real fed up with that and said, you're using too much dish soap. You need to get out. And that person was able to, the coordinated entry system found funding to buy 3 bottles of dish soap and sent the person back with those, and they were able to not enter shelter that night. In another example, someone was playing their music too loud, and the folks were able to find some headphones for that person so they could still listen to their music, but they weren't disturbing the other folks in the apartment. So those are some examples of how people have been diverted with actual items. We do want to record the amount of money that it would take to divert someone, even if we don't have that money. We don't currently have any diversion funding, but we're trying to get some, and so we want to understand how much would we need. And this is an opportunity for us to get real-time, information about how much money we would need in our system to divert households. So please do record that information very specifically, and put it in the correct category and add any description there. That would be helpful. So if folks are able to stay where they stayed, you just check those boxes. If it won't work for folks to stay where they stayed last night, we'll start exploring other safe places where they can stay. But so we'd say we'll like to help you look at some other options. And these we do want to go through sort of line by line and ask, are there any in this category, any in that category, any in that category? So we start with, are there any friends that you might be able to stay with? Are there any family members? Are there any past or present coworkers you might be able to stay with? Can you think of anywhere that you've stayed before that you could safely stay again? And if there's yes to any of these questions, we go back through and assess, was it safe? What would you need to stay there again? Is that a conversation? Is it money? And we go through each one of those cycles again, if there are anything that any place that folks can think of. So at the end, if folks are diverted, then in question 2A, then we note that the person was diverted, where they went, which category of place, and then what assistance was provided, if any. And if not diverted, then we note that the person was not diverted, and then question 3A pops up of what referrals were made. So then were people referred to our IFC shelters here in Orange County, or were they referred to an out-of-county shelter, or to Compass Center if safety concerns popped up? Or were they able to receive a hotel-motel voucher for their stay tonight? Or were they referred to crisis or detox or to the emergency room? So if multiple referrals were made, for example, if you referred to the shelter but they are full at IFC, and then you referred to an out-of-county shelter and they were full, and then eventually you referred to let's say, detox, because it turned out that they wanted to work on those issues, then you would note all the referrals that were made. If someone cannot complete the activities of daily living, so that's like bathing, eating, feeding themselves, that kind of thing, it's not appropriate to refer to shelter. So we do need to find a more medically intensive place that folks can go to. And if someone is currently under the influence, then they should be referred to detox at Freedom House. Some folks will be referred to the financial assistance resources page. So this would be if someone is in housing for more than 3 days, or if they're more than 3 days out from losing their housing, or if they went through the Exploring Your Options section, but they were not diverted. So this is a Google Doc that's updated regularly by different members of the community about what emergency financial assistance is available in our community. And if you are calling around and see something that needs to be updated, please do let us know through the Give Feedback button on OC Connect. So thanks for watching the OC Connect Exploring Your Options training. Please go back to the OC Connect training and enrollment page to continue the user registration process. As you use the OC Connect system, please let your OC Connect organizational representative know if you have questions or suggestions to improve the system. Thanks so much.